empezamos.
Ready?
Hey! Well, hey, good morning. So glad you guys decided to join us here today. For those who don't know me, my name is Morgan. I'm the lead pastor here. Really glad that you chose to spend part of your Sunday with us. Before we get going today, I just want to let you know about an event that's coming up. And men, I'm sorry, but it's not for you. Ladies, it's our next Women Connect event, and it's happening on the 8th of February. And a friend of mine is coming from the U.S. to come and speak at that event. Her name's Rachel Brown, and you might never have heard of Rachel, but Rachel has an incredible story. She was living in New Orleans a couple of years ago, and Hurricane Katrina rolled in. They were told to evacuate. She has never been back to that house. She has also lost two husbands very suddenly, one to an aneurysm, one to a sudden plane crash. And when you meet her, she has an amazing amount of faith, but amazing amount of hope as well. And if you're just interested in learning a little bit more about, hey, even in the midst of tragedy, in the midst of what you might be facing, that you can have hope and that you can see that God still loves you through some tragic circumstances, I think you need to be there. I think you need to be there regardless of what that. I'm trying to serve somewhere, like trying to get in at the desk or run computer just so I can be there, because I know how powerful Rachel's story is, but I'm male, and so I'm fighting my battles, and I know when to step down. And so, ladies, that's certainly an event that you don't want to miss. 8th of February. It's happening here. It's from 9 till 11 in the morning. It costs you 100 Rand. And my beautiful wife is going to be standing outside, and you can go sign up with her directly after the service. I'll remind you at the end as well. But I think if you've got a lady in your life, she needs to be at this event. And Rachel is just an incredible person. And just meeting her, you're going to walk away feeling that much better about your life as well. And so that's Women Connect happening on the 8th of February. You do not want to miss that. Well, today, I would love to encourage you, if you kind of get to the end of today and you're kind of wondering what's going on, maybe you need to go back and watch week one. You can do that on our website. You can go to southpoint.site as well, and that's a great place for you to find out all information. In fact, you can sign up for Women Connect right now on that website as well, southpoint.site. But some of you, you'll remember about our marbles in week one. Some of you have lost your marbles already, and some of you have no idea what I'm talking about. And so you kind of need to go and listen to week one again, but we are going to talk a little bit about how you can leverage your marble today, maybe in a unique way, maybe in a different way that you've maybe never thought about. But it's an opportunity for each and every one of us to be able to do something for someone else in a great way. And a little known fact about this series is that we were batting around some ideas for a name. We thought about calling it Resolution, how to disappoint yourself and those around you in less than a month. You know that's true because you tried a resolution and it hasn't worked out, right? Some of you did not do resolutions this year because you know it leads to disappointment, maybe in yourself or in others. But we chose something better. We chose to call it Better, how to have a better year than last year. And we certainly believe that you can have a better year than last year. That's what we've been talking about. The idea that you can have these small incremental deposits of better into your life over time, that as we take these things out of our marble and we're able to do some things consistently into our new year, we're able to do some things where we're able to create a better life for ourselves as well with the help of Jesus along the way. Now, the word better, I love the word better because it's so achievable, right? It feels like you can win. Like if you think about a resolution, sometimes a resolution can feel like a 180-degree swing, right? Like you're heading in this direction, and resolution is going to take you all the way over here, right? It just feels like it's maybe unachievable, something that we can't necessarily achieve. But better just feels like 1 degree, right? Like if we're going this way and we just go there, that's better than being there, right? It's better than not doing anything. It's better than getting worse. I mean, better is a really achievable word, right? It's something that we can kind of get our hands on. Better is just better, really. We can do better. We can live better. We can do a whole bunch more things in our lives. And I think you and I both realize that it's impossible to make this year perfect, right? I mean, there are too many circumstances. There are too many outside factors. We can't make this year perfect. We all recognize that. But we certainly can make this year better. Better is certainly possible for each and every one of us. And it all comes down to some small incremental deposits, one marble at a time. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, week one is going to help you understand that. But small incremental deposits over time will help us have a better year. But to kick us going off today, I want to ask you a question, and it's a little bit of discussion time, and so you can talk to someone next to you. You're allowed to do that in church, by the way. And I wanted to know, if you were going to go Google what the most popular searched resolution for 2020 would be, what do you think it would be? And I want you to tell the person next to you what you think that would be. Don't tell them your resolution. Tell them what you think the most searched for resolution is, and you can go. Okay, some of you clearly got some ideas. Let's show of hands here. Nothing awkward, show of hands. How many of you thought that it had something to do with losing weight? How many of those hands was your resolution? All right, how many of you thought it had something to do with money? Yeah? How many of you thought it was a combination of the two? Like, am I going to pay for gym this year and not go? Like, is that what's going to happen, right? No one? One person at the back there, thank you. I see that hand. What's interesting about the resolutions in the world, and especially about culture, is that 5 years ago, hands down, losing weight was the number one searched popular resolution around. It's not anymore. In fact, it is this. People want to know how to be a better person, being a better person. In fact, we're not doing so well at that because that's the number one for the last 3 years running. People want to be a better person. And I think it's a good thing to want to be a better person, right? If we want to be a better person, in holistic sense, all around, I mean, we'd, be better, have better health, we'd have better relationships, we'd have a whole bunch of better things in our lives. Being a better person is certainly something that we can come to. It's something that's a little bit more holistic, perhaps, in what we might experience in life. Being a better person is a great thing. But I know this, that being better is better than not being better. Some of you will catch up with me in just a bit. But being better is better than not being better, right? Like, being better is better than going backwards. Being better is better than not being better. Being better is the opportunity we have to move forward, and it gets better along the way. In fact, if you were going to start this year and you were going to do the exact same thing that you did last year and hope that this year was going to be better, you're going to get the same results. We all know that that is not how this works. But I mean, I wrestle with the question. I mean, we're talking about this idea of better, and yes, we all want a better year, right? But is better as good as it gets? Like, can we only achieve better? Is better the best option we have? Is better really as good as it gets? I mean, what about great? Is great an option for us? Could we have a great year? Because I know this, a great year is certainly better than a better year, right? A great year would be definitely better than a better year. I mean, I certainly want to have a better year, but I also want to have a great year, right? Is that even possible? So here's the question that we're asking as we kind of start off today. Is there a way to make this year our greatest year by being a better person? Is there a way that we can kind of, match these two up? Is there a way that we can make this year our greatest year by being a better person? And I think it's certainly possible. And we're going to unpack that a little bit here today. But it's going to require something of you, and it's going to require something of me. In fact, if you haven't got a resolution list, it's going to ask you to create this as your number one resolution for the year. If you've got a resolution list, hey, you can add this on there. But how are we going to be able to have a great year by being a better person? To understand this, I want to jump back and have a look at 12 guys known as the disciples. And what you might not know is that we have a lot in common with them. You look at them in the Bible, and they're these characters, and they follow Jesus around, and maybe they're fictional, maybe they're not real, like who knows, right? But you read about these people, and they don't necessarily line up with our lives. But we actually have a lot in common with them. And there's a moment that they are spending time with Jesus. There's this moment where there's just this great interaction between Jesus and the disciples. And the disciples have been going through life, and they've experienced better, and I'll explain to you why in just a little bit. But they're experiencing better, but better has become normal. Better has become normal for them. They were at a certain level. They've grown accustomed to this new level of better, but that's become their normal. And so we have a lot in common. We can learn a lot from listening to the disciples. But to understand where they are and kind of understand a little bit about their context, we need to go back a little bit, and I need to give you a little bit of a history lesson, so strap yourselves in. I'll make this quick. One of the things that people wanted to be, if you grew up as a little Jewish boy, one of the things you wanted to be when you grew up, probably the number one thing you wanted to be when you grew up, was a rabbi. Rabbis had a lot of power. Rabbis had authority. No Jewish boy wanted to grow up and be Caesar. That was just something you didn't do. You were kind of outcast. You were the black sheep if that was going to happen in your family because, no one wanted to support Rome. But if you were a Jewish boy, you wanted to become a rabbi. You had power, you had authority, you had wealth oftentimes. You were like the guy in Israel. Like your local town, hey, there goes the rabbi. He's the guy. There's people following him. There's people listening to him. They want to sit down at his feet. In fact, some people would get so close to the rabbi because all they wanted to do was get the dust of the rabbi's feet as he's walking along to cover them, that they might have something of the rabbi, that they might be able to walk away with saying something about that rabbi. And so a rabbi was really something you wanted to do and become as a little Jewish boy. And if you wanted to do that, you went to school, and the school was called Bet Midrash. And you would go to Bet Midrash, and you would go and learn, just, by 5 or 6 years old, you would go in, and you would learn the first 5 books of our Bible off by heart. You would learn the first 5 books, the Jewish scriptures, they would call them the Torah. You would learn all 5 of them off by heart. And I don't know about you, but I've tried to read the first 5 books of the Bible. And, Genesis was cool. Some great stories in there. Exodus was pretty cool. I got to, Leviticus, and I was like, what? I don't know about this. And by numbers, I was like, I'm out. There's just so many numbers in here. That's why it's called numbers. But I can't deal with that, right? Some of you have been like this. Some of you have experienced that. And these kids at 5 and 6, they would go to Bet Midrash, and they would actually learn the first 5 books off by heart. Not a lot of people could read, and so they learned this off by heart. Side note, there's a really interesting thing called questions and answers. That's how they memorize things. It's fascinating. You should go look it up. It's a side note. You can go and do that at your own. But they would learn the Torah, right? They would learn those 5. And if you were the best of the best, if you could do that, if you could memorize the first 5 books of the Bible, when you got a little bit older, you moved into the next part of education, which meant that you had to learn the entire Jewish scriptures. The entire Jewish scriptures off, out of your head. You had to know. If someone asked you, hey, what does Jeremiah say? You had to come up and be able to explain that. You had to be able to explain all the iterations of it, different interpretations of it. You had to know all of that stuff out of your head if you were going to go into the next level of becoming a rabbi. And so they would go to school, they'd go through Bet Midrash, the best of the best would carry on, and they would go into this learning the Jewish scriptures, and eventually they would get to the point where they're kind of getting ready to leave, and they would find a rabbi that they really enjoyed his interpretation of the Hebrew scriptures. I resonate with that guy. I can kind of follow along with him. He gives great teaching. I want to be just like him. And so you would go and follow him around, kind of not like a stalker, but you would follow him around, and you would want to be like him. And you would want to spend time with him as well. And at some point, if he thought you were good enough, you had the opportunity to be able to interview with him. He would sit you down and he'd ask you a ton of questions and trying to work out, hey, are you good enough? Are you good enough to follow me? Are you good enough to take on my interpretation of the Hebrew scriptures? And he would ask you a whole bunch of questions like, hey, Isaiah 40 verse 31, and you'd be able to nail it and be able to call it out and be able to talk all about that, right? You would like the best of the best. You could do that. And then if the interview went really well and the rabbi thought you were good enough, he would say, lechacharai to you. He would say, come and follow me, lechacharai, come follow me. And it was what every young Jewish boy hoped to hear at some point in their lives, that a rabbi would call them and say, lechacharai, come and follow me. You might remember that Jesus walking around, he says that, right? He says that to those disciples. In fact, back to the 12 guys that we're walking around with, the 12 disciples. When we meet them, they weren't following a rabbi. What were they doing? Most of them were fishing, right? Most of them were fishermen. There was a tax collector thrown in there just for fun. But, most of them were fishing. Why were they fishing? Because they were not the best of the best. No rabbi had said, hey, lechacharai, come follow me. No rabbi had said that to them. And so they had gone home. What you did, if you didn't go through, if you weren't the best of the best, you would go home and get involved in the family business. And for Peter, James, John, their family business was fishing. And so what did they do? They went home, joined the family business, and started fishing. Matthew goes home. I don't know if he had tons of brothers and sisters and there wasn't space in the family business for him, but he didn't want to be involved in the family business, and so he decides to go to Rome and buys the permission from the Roman governor to be able to collect taxes on behalf of Rome, and he basically becomes a traitor to the whole of Israel. No one wants to be friends with a tax collector. In fact, tax collectors only hung out with tax collectors. That's just how they operate, because they were traitors to the nation of Israel. And so you got Matthew and you got all these guys. They weren't the best of the best. No rabbi had ever believed in them enough to be able to say, lechacharai, come and follow me. They had gone back and ended up doing something else. They were not deemed as good enough. And, along the way, Jesus comes along and he meets Peter, James, and John on the beaches, and they're busy fishing, and Jesus says to them, hey, lechacharai, come follow me. And I'm sure Peter was like, there's no one else here. Like, are you saying that to me? Because my time had come and gone. That rabbi thought I was not good enough. He did not tell me or ask me to come. And you're asking me to come follow me? It was the invitation of a lifetime. And so, of course, Peter drops his nets and he follows Jesus, right? They're walking one day and they go down to the tax collector's table and there's Matthew. And Jesus says, hey, Matthew, lechacharai, come and follow me. And Peter's like, I'm out. I've had enough. Like, I'm not associating myself with this tax collector. And Jesus is like, no. I'm coming here to change things. You guys are on the same footing. I want you guys, I deem both of you good enough that you are the best of the best, that you can come and follow me, that you can be one of my disciples. But a couple of years go past, and the same thing happens to you, the same thing happens to me. Eventually, our better, right, because they certainly were living better. I mean, they were fishermen, they were tax collectors, now they're following Jesus. There's crowds around them, it's becoming pretty good, right? They're experiencing better, but that better eventually becomes normal. That better becomes normal for them, and suddenly they realize, hey, is this really as good as it gets? Like, is there something more? Can I be great? Is that even possible for us? And Jesus and the 12 disciples, they're one day walking down to Jerusalem, and Jesus has been talking a little bit about, hey, what's going to happen to me if we go to Jerusalem? So the disciples are a bit weary. They don't necessarily want to go down there. They know the religious leaders are going to come find him and arrest him. They're going to, try and kill him. That's what Jesus has been saying the whole time. And so Mark is writing down an account, possibly from Peter, we don't know. But he's sitting down and he's writing the account of Jesus' life and says this, we are going up to Jerusalem, Jesus said, and the Son of Man will be delivered, eventually by Judas, if you remember that story, over to the chief priests and the teachers of the law. And so Jesus says, hey guys, we're going to go to Jerusalem. I know what you think about this. I know what but we're going to go. And they don't understand what's going on. Jesus carries on and says, well, they will condemn him to death and will hand him over to the Gentiles, who will mock him and spit on him, flog him, and kill him. I mean, here's Jesus. He's pouring out, what's going to happen to him. He's trying to make it clear to these guys, hey, there's some tough times coming up ahead, okay? I want you to know that. But hey, here's the great news. 3 days later, he will rise. I mean, he makes it so clear for them, right? But these guys don't understand. They don't understand what's going on. I mean, Jesus tells them straight up. And how do we know that they don't understand? Because there's no one standing outside the tomb on Easter morning going, 10, 9, 8, here comes the sun, 6, 5, roll away the stone, here comes Jesus. No one's standing there. They think that Jesus is going to remain dead, because every other dead person they'd ever seen remained dead, right? And Jesus is telling them this exact thing, that, hey, 3 days later he's going to rise. But they don't understand what's going on. I mean, you can kind of imagine the scene, right? We're on the way to Jerusalem. Jesus is telling these guys exactly what's going to happen. There's going to be some mocking and some, maybe some killing going on, right? I mean, Jesus is telling them what's going to happen. And in fact, he's going to do all of this because on your behalf, on my behalf, right? On the disciples' behalf. And then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, come to him. Teacher, they said, we want you to do for us whatever we ask. To which I'm like, guys, have you not heard what he just said? Like, mocking and spitting and like, were you not listening? And Jesus, because he's Jesus, I think kind of plays along. He says, well, what do you want me to do for you? He's kind of like that mother with a teenage son or daughter who like just rolls their eyes and decides, well, we'll just go along with this, see where this goes. You want to kind of tease out what's happening in their life, right? And Jesus knows. I mean, Jesus knows everything. Jesus knows what you're thinking before you even ask it. So Jesus knows, but he's going along with the thing. And they replied, let one of us sit at your right and the other at your left in your glory. Like, Jesus, I hear you about the whole spitting and mocking and flogging and killing thing. Like, I'm sure it's going to be tough. Like, I'm sorry about that, but could you do something for us? Could you let us sit at, like, your right hand and your left hand? I mean, come on, guys. Were you not paying attention? Were you not listening to what Jesus has just said? I mean, these are the guys we eventually made saints, right? These are the guys who get named and are famous. We named our children after them, some of us. We name our dogs Nero and Caesar, but, that's for another time, right? But these guys are just like us. They want to be assured of greatness. They want to be assured of greatness. Because they're certainly experiencing better, right? They're going through life. They were fishermen. They were tax collectors. They were experiencing better. They were experiencing a better life than they were experiencing. And they're wondering, hey, like, There's some glory coming here. There's a following happening here. There's a bit of momentum happening right now. Is this as good as it gets? You know, I mean, Jesus is walking around. Everywhere Jesus goes, there are crowds gathering, right? And people are beginning to notice who James and John are. They're beginning to recognize Jesus. They're beginning to recognize who Peter is. Because if you feed like 20,000 people with some fish and chips on the side of a hill, like people hear about that, right? People start following you because of that. If you make some mud cakes and you put it on someone's eyes and they were blind up until that point and you take them off and suddenly they can see, people start talking about things like that. If you walk up to a leper and you hug a leper and instead of getting leprosy, that person is healed, like people start talking about that, right? So people are starting to notice Jesus. They're starting to notice what's happening with him and his disciples as they're walking around. People are starting to notice what is in fact going on. And the disciples are going, well, we're certainly living a better life, but hey, this is the question they're asking. Can we be greater than better? We're experiencing better right now, but can we be greater than just better? Now, you've got to remember that Jesus is standing there with James and John, sons of Zebedee, but there's the 10 other guys still standing around, right? And so when the 10 heard about this, they became indignant with James and John. And if you're kind of empathetic and you've got a little compassion for the story, you kind of look at this and go, well, like, guys, how could you say that? I mean, Jesus just told you about the spitting and the flogging and the mocking. Like, how, you're not being very empathetic towards Jesus, like he's going to be killed on your behalf. Like, but I don't think they're indignant because of that. I think they're indignant because they didn't think of the idea first, right? Because Jesus is going to be at the top, and James and John, they got in first. They were like, I want to be number 2 and number 3. And the other 10 are sitting there going, I don't want to be in the back. I want to be there as well. I want to be serving alongside Jesus. And Jesus looks at these guys and like, guys, this is the perfect teaching moment, right? So he sits them down maybe on the side of the road on their way to Jerusalem, and he says, Jesus called them all together and said, you know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them. They're like, yeah, we know that. And their high officials exercise authority over them. Yeah, we know that. Yeah, Jesus, that's what we want to do. We want to be great because the great people, they love reminding you that they have authority over you. And we want to be great. We want to be able to do that. I grew up having some people lord it over me, right? I have grown up with some people exercising authority over me. I want that opportunity. I want to be great so that I could do those things. I want to be able to lord it over people. I want to be able to exercise some authority over people. I just don't want to be better. I want to do that same thing. Jesus comes along and twists the whole thing, and he says, well, not so with you. I know you know that's how the world works, and that's how greatness works in the world right now, that you see those people, and that they lord it over others, that they exercise authority over, and that makes them great. Well, in my kingdom, it's going to be a little different. Not so with you. It's going to be different for you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you, and the disciples are like leaning in, right? They're like on the edge of their seat. They want to know what he's about to say because they want to be great, just like you want to be great, just like I want to be great. They're on the edge of their seats and they're waiting. And I just want to tell you, like, if we can apply what Jesus is about to tell us, because I think he'd say the same thing to us, I think if we were able to apply this thing in our lives, we would have a great year. It would change this entire year for you and for me if we were able to apply this. So Jesus says, not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. To which, again, I'm sure the disciples are like completely confused, right? Jesus, have you not seen the servants? The servants, they serve people who are great. The slaves, they serve people who are great. I don't want to be a servant. I don't want to be a slave. I want to be great. But Jesus comes along and he says, no. The greatest in the eyes of God are those who have chosen to serve other people. The greatest in the eyes of God are those who have chosen to serve other people. And no matter what you believe in Jesus, no matter what you might believe about Christianity, whether you're a Jesus follower or not, you know this to be true. Because you have some people in your life who have done something for you. They did not have to do that. They've done something for you without you asking, and it has benefited you. And they are great in your eyes, right? In fact, the people we celebrate in this world are not necessarily the people who came first, not necessarily the people who have done so much for themselves. It's people who have done stuff for other people, right? It's why we celebrate the legacy of Nelson Mandela. He could have chosen to do something really easy. He could have chosen an easy path. He could have chosen to do something just for himself. He chose no to do something for other people. He knew that serving other people was the best thing that he could do. That's why we celebrate his legacy. Because we regard him as great because he chose to do for others what they couldn't necessarily do for themselves. See, in God's economy, greatness looks very, very different. And Jesus standing there in front of these men punctuates the idea by saying this, talking about himself. He says, "For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." Hey guys, in a couple of days' time, I'm going to the cross. And I'm going to be nailed to that cross. And the nails aren't going to hold me on that cross. It's going to be you. You are going to hold me on that cross. I'm putting you first over myself. I'm choosing to serve you by going to that cross. See, because Jesus didn't come to earth to be served as God. I mean, he's God in human form. I think that deserves to be served, right? He could just say, right, I'm getting served. He did not choose to do that. He came to serve you, and he came to serve me as God. He came to serve you and to serve me as God. Jesus didn't come to this earth to make things better. He came here to make things new, and he came here to make things great. And if you want to have your greatest year ever, it begins by admitting that last place is the greatest place. Taking from what Jesus has said, last place is in fact the greatest place, and to serve is greater than being served. That last place is in fact the greatest place, and if we're going to serve someone else, serve is greater than being served. And then living for others is like living like Jesus. That if you want to look more like Jesus, if you want to live more like Jesus, if you want to be a little bit more like Jesus, you live for other people. You go and read about his life. His entire life is a demonstration of him living for other people. It really is an amazing, amazing thing to think about. We're able to serve ourselves by serving others, is what Jesus is saying. We end up making ourselves great as we're able to put ourselves in last place and be able to serve those around us. And what's amazing about this is every single one of us can be great. We can be assured of greatness because of what Jesus has done for you and for me. Resolutions are great. I mean, resolutions can make you better, right? That's the nature of a resolution. We all put resolutions out there to try and make ourselves better. I mean, it's a good thing, right? We want to be more healthy. We want to maybe live by a budget. We want to be a better person this year. But resolutions can also be dangerous because resolutions end up circling around ourselves. It's just really about us, right? And if a resolution, what you're pursuing as a resolution is just part of what you're doing, that's fine. But if it's the only thing that you're doing, you're going to experience better maybe. You might have better health. You might have better finances. You might become a bit of a better person. But you're going to miss out on greatness. You're going to miss out on greatness. You might experience better. But you're going to miss out on greatness. Because resolutions, they can make you better. But serving others are going to make you greater. To kind of sum this up in a nice little package, you can say it this way. We are greater. You and I are greater when we make another's life better. You and I, we can be greater when we make someone else's life better. When we're able to take a marble and we're able to make small incremental deposits into someone else's life. You remember in week 1, we talked about these marbles being, that the opportunity we have to be able to create a better year for us. It's not about just deciding we want to lose weight. It's about going to the gym consistently, right? It's about eating right consistently. And what's amazing about a better year is if we take these marbles and we consistently make deposits into our year, if we consistently do this, at some point our steam's going to run out, right? We're going to be like, I just can't go to gym today. I just can't resist that deal on one day only, right? I just can't, right? And what's beautiful about our Heavenly Father is our Heavenly Father loves us so much that when we run out of steam, when we run out of energy, we can ask for help. We're able to call out and say, God, would you help me? Would you help me to continue being consistent that I might have a better year than last year? Because God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. When we are weak, God is able to come in, as Paul said, and make us strong along the way. Now, I just want to say that maybe illustrate this to you. Like, this is our year, but this is also someone else's life, right? This is our year, but in this principle, this is also someone else's life. And a marble represents an opportunity you and I have to be able to serve someone else. We have the opportunity to be able to make someone else's life greater by the way that we serve them. And what's interesting is this someone may be someone in your home. When I talk about the opportunity you have to serve someone, this might be someone in your home. You think about, you know what? No one else in my house is going to serve this person, but I want to do that. And then I'm going to take every opportunity I have to be able to serve this person. And it might not make my life better, but it's going to make their life better. And I'm going to be assured of greatness from my Heavenly Father, that I'm able to make small deposits into that. Maybe it's someone at work. Maybe it's someone new. They've just joined the company. You have no idea who they are, but hey, you have the opportunity to be able to serve them. You could ignore them, but I'm going to choose to serve that person. I'm going to make these small deposits over time that I'm going to serve this person, that they might have a better year. And in serving them, I'm able to experience greatness. Maybe it's someone in your community. I mean, you and I, we bump into people all the time, right? On the school run, maybe at the shops, we bump into all kinds of people. Maybe someone you just choose to intentionally, I'm going to take every opportunity I have to serve this person. You know, as hard as it might be, I'm going to serve this person. And I'm going to continue to make small deposits into this person. I'm going to invest in this person's life. Now, if you're here today and you're not a follower of Jesus, you're kind of on the fence about the whole thing, you're still trying to figure out the whole faith thing, what's amazing about this principle is you can apply it as well. You can take the Jesus part out of it and apply it. Maybe you've been coming here for a while and you know some of the stuff we talk about, it's helpful to your marriage, it's helpful to your life, it's helpful to what you're doing, maybe helpful to your relationships. But you just take the Jesus part out, right? You can do the same thing in this principle. Just taking this thing out. You can be assured of greatness if you are going to be able to serve other people. That choosing last place, that when you have the opportunity to serve someone else and you keep serving them, you're putting yourself in last place, you have the opportunity to become great. And do you know the reason why that works? It's because regardless of what you believe in Jesus, Jesus has done this exact thing for you. Jesus decided to choose to serve you, regardless of what you believe about him. And when he chose to do what he did, when he died for you and he died for me, he changed everything about how the world works. And that greatness you feel as you start serving someone, that greatness that you begin to feel, that is just a glimpse of what God has already done for you in his Son, Jesus Christ. So if you're here today and you're not a follower of Jesus, hey, what are you holding on to that is holding you back from exploring faith with Jesus Christ? What is the thing that is holding you back that you might just want to open your hands and be open to a relationship with Jesus? If you are a Jesus follower here today, this isn't just a truth that we know. It isn't something that we know to be true. It's a command. Did you know that? You know, just before the crucifixion, Jesus is sitting with his guys and he says, hey, I want to give you a new commandment. And they're like, we don't need another commandment, Jesus. We got 600 odd commands. He's like, no. I want to give you a new command. And I just want you to do this one thing. If you get this one thing right, everything else will take care of itself. As I have loved you, won't you love other people? As I have done for you, would you go and do that for other people as well? And you might be sitting here today and you might feel like you still need to impress God, that you still need to do some things to impress God or kind of get on God's good side. You and God are good. Jesus sorted that out for you. Okay, you don't need to impress him. That's already done. So I want you to just imagine for a moment as we wrap up here. Just imagine for a moment what this might look like at home. As you choose to, every day, have every opportunity you can to be able to serve someone in your home, that you might make their life better, that you might choose last place, that you might serve them, that you might be greater because of what you're doing in someone else's life. Imagine what that would be like in your community if you chose to do that with someone in your community. Imagine what that would look like at work if you chose to do that. They don't necessarily deserve it, but you're choosing last place to be able to serve that person, that you might be able to experience greatness along the way. In fact, I would argue that maybe you don't need to imagine, because you've experienced this. If I asked you to come up and ask you to tell your story, you would name a few people, wouldn't you? You would name a few people along the journey who you would consider great. In fact, you're standing on their shoulders, right? You would name a couple of people that have played a pivotal role, maybe at work, maybe in your life. You would name some people because you would say that they are great. I mean, if I have a look at my life. I mean, my mother has sacrificed a whole bunch of stuff. I'm sure yours was as well. My mother has sacrificed so much that that I could be where I am today. I had a teacher at school named Duncan Coombe who believed in me in grade 8 that I could run a music event. And I ran a music event every year. And I learned so much about running events and about fundraising that I'm so grateful for what he was able to do in my life. He helped me start a little business called the Drum Cafe. We used to run every Monday night. And we would invite a whole bunch of people in, and we would run that every Monday night. I was in high school. He didn't have to do that. He chose to help me with that. I have a lady in my life named Margie Brotherton, who one day took a risk on me and took me on as an assistant leader in Youth Alpha. Kind of like a, hey, we're going to experience Christianity together course. And I'm leading this group of people with her. And at some point, she decided that I was worthy of leading my own group. And she let me experience ministry on my own for the very first time. Margie made these small deposits in my life over time that I'm able to experience what I was able to experience. I have another guy named Paul McHardy. He lent into a crazy idea that I had, and we built a small business together. And all we did was the two of us, he just continued to make small deposits into my life about, hey, how can we do this? How can we do this better? How can we do this? And I am where I am today because of those people in my life, or countless other people. But there are people in my life who, as I tell my story, I would look back at them and say, hey, those people have made my life great. I mean, who knows where I would have been today had it not been for those people. And every time you decide to take a marble, that you make a small investment into someone else's life, every time you decide to take a marble out and you make that investment, every time you decide to do that, you're creating a better story for them. And when they get their opportunity to tell their story, because they will at some point, whether it be in church, amongst a group of friends, maybe somewhere in public, they might mention you. They might say your name because of what you chose to do on their behalf by serving them. They would consider you great because of what you have done on their behalf. And so this year, as we kind of move into 2020, January's almost done, I hope that you would not stop at having a better year, that you would go all the way to having the greatest year ever. And that starts by making another person's life better. Let me pray for us. Father God, thank you for really doing the ultimate for us, that you sent your son to be an example of this, that he was the demonstration of this. He didn't write us a letter. He doesn't give us a phone call and drop us a voice note. Father, he was a demonstration of this, that he went to the cross for each and every one of us. And then, Father God, that we have the opportunity to be able to pursue greatness, that we're assured greatness by you, that as we choose last place, as we put ourselves at the bottom, Father God, that we're able to serve others, be able to not experience just a better life, Father God, but be able to experience greatness. And Father God, for those of us in the room who are followers of you, this isn't just a truth. This is something you've commanded us to do. So, Father God, would you open our eyes to be able to see those opportunities that we might be able to lean into? That we're going to resist that because that's our nature. But, Father God, would you help us lean in, be able to pick up those marbles, and just make small deposits over time to those people? Father God, thank you for your Son. Thank you for Jesus. Thank you for what he did for each and every one of us, regardless of how we feel about you. We pray all these things in his name.